Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. This weekend, you have a big fight between heavy favorite Gervonta Davis and replacement Hugo Ruiz. Right? Davis was to fight Abner Maris, who suffered a detached retina. So in steps the former WBC super bantamweight champion. I see a betting opportunity here, but first remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Okay? What would a Dwyer video be without crates in the background? Just ignore the background for a second here. Let's talk about this fight. Let me say this. Davis has one of the biggest punches pound for pound in boxing. It's his left hand. He can throw it from high. He can throw it from low. He has an excellent left uppercut. Understand, this is a southpaw who can lead with power shots. He's also sudden. So 1 minute he's standing there. You don't think he's going to throw heavy artillery. Then without setting things up, Davis will launch a huge punch. Right? He's certainly devastating. That left hand is devastating. Now the right hand's interesting because he drops Jose Pedraza. Right? In fact, Pedraza's so surprised by it, Pedraza goes through the ropes. He drops Jose Pedraza with a right hand. But understand, while he has a right hook, Davis himself favors his left hand for power shots about 90% of the time. Now that's important. Davis also likes to have his feet wide apart and likes to have you up on the ropes when he unloads his big shots. Right? So he wants to corner you. Then he wants to have built-in leverage, right? You'll notice when he gets into power mode, he's flat-footed. Then he starts throwing big shots at you, predominantly with the left hand. Now, I believe Davis, as good as he is, and he's excellent, folks, but I believe Davis could be an opportunity for a veteran who understands movement. In other words, first, let's talk placement. If you're in the middle of the ring against Davis, as opposed to over by the ropes, right? You're doing better than most of his opponents. Now, if you understand that his left hand is the hand he trusts for power shots, and if you're mobile and you understand that Davis keeps his feet wide apart, likes to go flat-footed before he starts throwing power shots, then you have an opportunity to move away from his left hand. Right? Not get suckered by the fact that he's a southpaw. You're going to move away from his left hand. You're going to have him moving. Right? Because he's better flat-footed than he is moving. Moving, he can't get the power shots off. Also, as you move toward his right, you're going to know Davis took out Pedraza with a right hand up top. Davis isn't adept at throwing that right hand down low. Right? Also, Davis is shorter. So, a shorter guy who keeps his feet wide apart is an opportunity for a jabber who can get up on his toes. A guy who's taller, who can hit Davis with a jab, as Davis is trying to corner you with a wide stance so he can throw his left hand. right? If you know that's what Davis is going to try to do, then you have a lot of opportunities to stay away from the corner, move, force Davis to reset, hit Davis with the jab. Right? Also, many of Davis's earlier bouts feature guys who looked like they were expecting to get touched with the jab before Davis threw his big left hammer. Right? Well, at this level of the game where guys are studying film, a veteran like Hugo Ruiz is going to understand that Davis might not touch him with his offhand, that Davis might lead with power shots. That element of surprise should be gone. Also, the fact that Davis has a hand low, right? Davis southpaw will keep his backhand, his left hand, low at times. A veteran like Ruiz will have looked at film and will realize that Davis can throw an uppercut with his left hand low, something that seems to have caught some of Davis's earlier opponents off guard. In other words, Davis is unorthodox. He's a southpaw. He throws power shots with his left hand, which is A+, from different positions. Right? He'll lead with power shots. He won't set up the shots. I believe that has gotten Davis where he is. That has thrown off a lot of opponents. So the kind of guy who's going to give Davis some challenges is going to be an experienced fighter, an older fighter, who knows how to move, who doesn't stay in the pocket to trade with Davis, who's going to spend the first few rounds of the fight moving away from Davis's hand, forcing Davis to move. When Davis starts moving, they're going to use that opportunity to get in their punches and then to back away. You're fighting a guy who has a bevy of early KOs, right? You need a patient veteran opponent who is going to try to take Davis to the later rounds, right? An opponent who isn't going to see a 5'5" guy across the ring from him and then is going to decide, you know what, let me come in here and blow this kid out. Rather, you want an opponent who's going to say, you know what, this guy might be Mike Tyson. More of a one-handed Mike Tyson in the early rounds. Let's get him to the later rounds. And then let's see if he wilts like Mike Tyson did the first time he fought Evander Holyfield. I believe Hugo Ruiz is that kind of fighter. First, let's talk about mental toughness. Understand this guy is a former champion. More importantly, this guy traveled to Japan. And you know, I'm a guy who loves to see fighters who, travel, have fought in front of the other fighters' crowd, right? Have fought on the road where they have 5 people rooting for them and the other guy has 15,000 people rooting for them. He fought Izumi Hasegawa, very advanced, very popular fighter in Japan. Now, he lost the fight. He quit on the stool. I know for many boxing purists that's heresy. But understand that fight went 9 rounds. 9 rounds. 9 rounds. Let's talk about the last time he was stopped. He was stopped in 2015 by Ceja. Understand what happened in that fight. Ruiz knocked Ceja down in the 3rd round. Ceja goes down. Ceja doesn't have Ruiz's boxing skills. Ruiz is a boxer puncher. Ruiz knocks him down. Sometimes the worst thing that can happen to a fighter is knocking the other guy down. So Ruiz, who before then was throwing the shorter, straighter punches and who was moving around the ring, exactly the kind of strategy he should use against Gervonta Davis. After Ruiz knocks down his opponent, Ruiz then decides to linger around the pocket. Right? The guy he knocked down is hurt. This is his opportunity to start teeing off on his opponent. Well, Ceja gets off the canvas, and as you can imagine, the guy who he couldn't find the first 3 rounds is now right there in front of him. So the fight turns into a shootout, exactly what you don't want against a heavy-handed guy with a great left hook, which is who Ceja was. Ceja drops Ruiz in the 5th round, right? It's a left hook. That's important because, of course, Gervonta Davis throws great left hooks. Gervonta Davis is a southpaw. And, of course, the referee stops the fight in the 5th round. I believe, just looking at the film, and it's in my favorites folder here online, that if Ruiz doesn't knock down his opponent in the 3rd round, he wouldn't be lingering around putting himself at risk to get knocked out in the 5th round. Right? Well, understand. First, they had a rematch. The rematch doesn't go 2 rounds. Ruiz comes out. He knows the other guy's weaknesses. He's a highly technical fighter. He stops Ceja in the 1st round of the rematch. But more importantly, the fight in which he got stopped in the 5th round in 2015 was the first time in 8 years, that Hugo Ruiz had been stopped in a fight. First time in 8 years. In other words, this is a savvy veteran who knows how not to get hit. He knows to defend himself. When you see him, you notice he's in the pocket even when he lands good shots. He'll move away, and he'll move away with his upper body bent, kind of like Keith Thurman. Right? Comes in, throws dynamite, then will back away and does so where he's mindful defensively. Right? Protecting his body, backing away, not giving the other guy a lot to hit. Right? Not moving away, standing upright where there's a lot for the other guy to hit. No, Ruiz gets off some shots. Then he'll bend at the waist and back away. I believe he is going to give Gervonta Davis problems. I'm not predicting that he beats Davis. Davis is in his mid-20s. Hugo Ruiz is 32 years old. And in this weight class, right, that makes him an old man. But what I am saying is there's a prop on the board here. A low over-under. 4.5 rounds. In other words, 4 full rounds and the midway point of the 5th round. The question is whether Ruiz is going to show up. Granted, he's a replacement, right? He hasn't had the full camp. Whether he's going to show up and whether he's going to be unprepared and get stopped inside the first 4.5 rounds. I don't think that's the case. He's not an inexperienced fighter. This is a former champion who had fights against world-class competition on the road. Right? This is a mentally tough guy who, when you look at his films, and I have the Hasegawa Ruiz film in my favorites folder here. When you look at his films, you notice the guy is in a feints and movement. He's aware of the advanced parts of the game. You also notice he throws straight punches, and he doesn't stick around to admire his work, unless, of course, he knocks you down in the third round. I also feel that Davis, who's a rising star, people want him to fight Lomachenko. I think that's an interesting fight. But understand, Davis is the kind of guy who, at this point, because of the hype he's gotten, because of the fact that he beat a pretty good champion, Jose Pedraza, right? At this point, veterans know about him. Ruiz entering the ring is going to know everything I've told you here. That Davis is a southpaw. That Davis doesn't have a tell on that explosive left. That Davis has a stiff leg and he likes to, his lead foot, and he likes to corner you, throw power shots from a wide base. In other words, veteran fighters, especially fighters who know how to move like Ruiz, are going to look at the film and immediately know, I need to get up on the balls of my feet. I need to move a little bit. Right? Also, a guy like Ruiz is going to know that the early rounds are perilous. Perilous against Gervonta Davis. That there's a chance that you could get stopped early, as so many have. That's why you have such a low over-under. So he's a guy who's going to avoid being cornered in the early rounds. I believe an active part of his game plan is going to be to get this fight into the later rounds. Right? A guy can look like Hercules in the early rounds. By round 7, the guy may have lost 50% of his punch. So I'm expecting Ruiz to use lateral movement, a back foot game. He has a back foot game. Right? I'm expecting him to stay in the middle of the ring. Not allow himself to get caught up on the ropes. In other words, a lot of what he's going to do is going to take place before any punches are thrown. Right? He's going to want Davis to be moving because he knows Davis, when he's able to set up his stance and not move and just throw power shots, is devastating. The bet I like here is the over 4.5 rounds. Right, folks? That's an awfully low over-under for a fight involving a former title holder who has only been stopped at that distance once in several years. Let me point out too, again, he retires after the 9th round of the Hasegawa fight. If he retires after the 9th round of this Davis fight, you're laughing because you're collecting money. Right? Understand, the over-under is 4.5. Hell, if he retires after the 5th round, you're laughing. You're collecting money. You can cash your ticket. But I want you to understand the risk involved. If Gervonta Davis comes out, corners this guy, who's 32, gets off some hellacious left hands, and you see Davis going down, you see Ruiz going down. If Ruiz gets stopped inside of the midway point of the 5th round, you lose it all. I like the over 4.5 rounds. That's how I'm playing it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments in the comment section of this video. Tell us which prop on this fight you like. Tell us how you're playing it. Just understand, don't fall into the public narrative that Ruiz is a replacement who's a sacrificial lamb. I actually think Ruiz is going to be a tougher fight because of his movement for Davis, than would Abner Maris have been, because Maris is a blood and guts guy who would be there trying to trade with Davis. That's a recipe for disaster. Right? This is a guy who's going to try to move, who's going to try to get Davis up on the balls of his feet, who's going to try to get Davis to throw right hands to the body. Think about it. If he moves away from Davis's left and he has a hand up to block the right hand up top that Davis had that dropped Pedraza, what's Davis going to do? At a certain angle, aren't you out of the range of Davis throwing left uppercuts, right? Left hands up top to the side of your head. If I'm moving this way, am I not taking the sting out of that punch? And if I have a hand up, am I not taking the sting out of Davis's right hand up top? If I move and Davis has to move to find me, am I not decreasing his power? Right? Because does Davis throw big punches when his feet are moving with the same power that he does when his feet are wide apart? Right? We just saw Manny Pacquiao take apart Adrian Broner, another guy who needs a wide stance to throw power shots. Right? Broner then, low volume, look at the box score, look at the CompuBox. Broner then had to abandon throwing power shots. Right? Broner then starts dancing in the fight. Fight goes the distance. Broner outboxed, power neutralized, outlanded. Right? Focus on Gervonta Davis's feet. If Ruiz can get him to move his feet and to not get set in a wide stance, this fight's going to make it over 4.5 rounds. That's how I see it. I look forward to your comments. Thanks for stopping by.